Okay, don't be a shop that sells everything, is what most people say. Instead, consider what your niche could be. We all know the expression, a jack of all trades and a master of none. So don't spread yourself too thin and think about where you can add the most value. It's all too easy when you're at the start of your career or you've just set up your own business to want to be involved in everything. Being busy almost seems like a badge of honor in today's world, but at times it can be actually counterproductive. What are you actually achieving? Today I'm delighted to welcome Des Ewing. Des, you've established a fantastic business focusing mainly on one-off bespoke beautiful houses, known for both their creativity and their attention to detail. So what I'd like you to do is maybe tell me a wee bit about your journey. Why did you set up on your own?
I set up on my own because I suppose I wanted to be in charge.
Yeah.
I worked for a large practice and I was the youngest architect there. I was always told what to do, and I suppose I thought I knew better what to do.
Yeah.
So I started designing a couple of houses, some houses in the evening, and then I managed to persuade the clients that I could not only design the houses but build them, which was a bit of total madness, but it was something that I thought was a great idea at the time.
So project manage them as well as actually the design?
Project manage
Yeah.
them, which is basically being the builder. I had to, everything had to be ordered. I would have to order it. I was a quantity surveyor. I was adding up how many bricks we needed. I was going around suppliers trying to get better prices. I was arranging for plasterers to come, bricklayers, everybody, anything that was done on that site I had to arrange. And then of course there'd be the bits in the middle that I would forget. We needed a labourer to do this because I found out how little I actually knew about construction, because we were actually doing everything. And so it was me labouring as well some days, driving diggers, doing piles, doing any sort of work that was required
Good
to
experience.
try and make it work. It was a brilliant experience.
Yeah.
I'd recommend it to any architect to do that.
Actually get on site and get their hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah, get their
Yeah.
hands dirty, or actually look at the buildability of it. How does sequencing work? What materials do
Yeah.
you need? What is the problem about putting in the big roof light that's 3 stories up? We would just put them in and not worry too much about them, but there are difficulties in getting these elements within the building.
Yeah.
So to actually be there and have to work it out while you've got 10 plasterers looking at you and wondering why you didn't order plasticizer or whatever,
Yeah.
It sharpens the mind.
Okay. So you did a couple of projects in your spare time effectively, and
Yeah.
then you persuaded these clients to take you on properly. So
Yeah.
that was back to what we said. You were doing everything,
Mhm.
absolutely everything, and obviously that's not sustainable in
Yeah.
a business that you're trying to grow. So
Yeah.
the initial designs that you did, they were large houses, one-off houses.
Yeah.
Did you decide at what stage to go, this is the type of project I want to be involved in, a one-off bespoke design?
I think the reason I did houses because that was what was available to do. That's what people wanted you to do, and I was doing it in my spare time in the practice. But the difference between houses and commercial buildings, the practice I was with did a lot of commercial buildings, and why I didn't like the commercial buildings were they were very glamorous, big projects to be involved in, but you're only involved in a small part of it, rather than looking at the overall picture. And also, people didn't care about it as much as I'd thought. The clients weren't too worried about how it looked as long as it was open for Christmas.
Yeah.
Whereas houses, people are passionate about them.
Yeah.
People who want to create their own homes. It's about family. It's about people. It's much more interesting, finding out how people are going to live in these properties. And people were very happy whenever when you have a good design, be
Yeah.
appreciated. Now the converse of that is, whenever things went wrong,
Yeah.
they were an awful lot worse, because
Yeah.
people get very upset about it. It's their money, it's their life, it's their family that you're destroying. So you had to be sharper, you had to be better, but it's very soul destroying if you're working away for days on a project and then nobody cares about it.
Yeah.
So houses I like them because people are passionate about
Yeah,
them.
they're emotionally invested, into them, whereas a commercial properties, an end result maybe just it's an investment for somebody rather than a home's a home.
Yeah, that's right. Home's a
Yeah.
home, and it's about people as well. You get to know the people, you get to know them an awful lot better, because you're discussing what they do when they get out of the bed in the middle of the night, and where they go, and all these sort of things, and about their personalities, and you also get involved in because it's you've two people who are building one dream. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's a difference between the two parties about what that dream is going to be.
Yeah.
So the job extends into counselling as well
Yeah.
as
Relationship management.
design. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
So niche, I've described you as being a niche, or as our American cousins would call it, niche. Okay, so niche architecture, which I think is really where you are. Why did you go down that particular route? Was it an interest of your own, or because people were emotionally invested in their house, you got better feedback from them? Or?
I did. I like doing houses. I like them because it is all about design, and it's personal issues that you're trying to work around, and also the scale of the projects. Or you can have an overview of everything rather than the commercial buildings where I was in charge of doors or door handles. When things are very big, or cladding or something like that. So I like this overview and this continuity between the projects. It was something that was important and was satisfying to do. So, but houses, I like the fact that whenever a client would come to you, it's that person sitting in front of you that is making the decision, rather than a commercial building. It goes to the committee or the board or whatever, and then something that's maybe a fudge comes back. I would rather have the person in front of me telling us how bad we did on something, or what they want, and things are very clear. And the projects, whenever they start, they happen. A lot of commercial projects are feasibility things, and things stop and start, whereas homes tend to progress and go right through.
There's Ewing as an individual rather than the business. You weren't going to drive the lorries or do the piling and all the rest of it. You're now doing a particular role inside the business, because in the first stage you were doing absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Now, what's your focus inside your business?
Well, I stopped doing the building of the houses because I found that I wasn't very good at it. Every time the phone rang, it was a problem. Everything was a problem, and there are people. Some of the builders we use are very good at that. They maybe even enjoy continuous confrontation or problem solving in that regard. So it's horses for courses. It also wasn't as lucrative as an architect. I'd always believed that the builders made an awful lot of money because their prices always seemed to be inflated.
Yeah.
But you find out that that's maybe not the case, and they do earn their money. But design was my forte. At college, that's what I enjoy doing, and I always and continue to get this thrill out of, sitting down with a cup of coffee and creating these things from initial sketches to become a home that somebody's going to live in. That just doesn't diminish throughout the years of that thrill of seeing something that are just ideas in your head into something that people spend their lives within, and hopefully improve people's lives. So I do, I like that part of it, it's very design orientated, and design is what I enjoy.
Obviously, during the time you've been in business, there's been ups, downs. We've seen various things going on in the world. We spoke earlier about in 2008, when possibly Northern Ireland slowed down slightly, you had this particular skill set and you decided, what can I do with it? So take me from there. You then moved to do some work in London?
Yeah, in 2008, at that stage, there was a lot of development going on, and half our work were developments where we would do residential developments in conservation areas or the very difficult sites. That was our forte. And then the other part was the large one-off houses for people. The development stopped overnight. In the space of a fortnight, it totally stopped. But luckily, we had a lot of houses still going on. And nobody thought the recession was going to go on as long. So people continued to buy cheaper sites, and not everybody was broke instantly. People still weren't affected by it, and they were getting cheaper sites, and they were getting builders to build it at good prices. So we continued on to another 3 years with that, and then I think realization came this is something a bit more serious than that, and everything stopped. That in Northern Ireland certainly, and that was our market. At that stage, we had to do something, or spend our life doing garages or little jobs that we weren't really
you
set
weren't
up
going to get the job
do.
satisfaction out of that either.
Yeah, we had to look at a different market, and we looked at Manchester in the Golden Triangle between Prestbury and around that area in Cheshire, and we found it was in recession as well. And like some of these top end markets, and you only have to go out and do these things to try and to find out what the problems are. And there's a sort of a cartel going, and there's probably a cartel going in Northern Ireland where there are particular architects, particular builders who do the work and are known to do the work and are a safe pair of hands. The same was in Cheshire, and Cheshire was a market that was going down as well, like the north of England was, and we found it difficult to get into. So I then thought, well, if I'm going to get on a plane, I may as well go to London, and that's where it's all happening. And London was booming. It was, we were coming out of Belfast where nothing was happening, and London was so busy. The problem with London was that nobody trusted anybody. I would come along with all our one-off houses that we'd done, and people would look at them and go, "Oh, it's very nice." And they'd be wondering, "Did he actually do those, or just pictures? Who does he know? What's he done in this area?" So, getting started was pretty difficult in London because of that lack of trust. That people didn't take it at face value because they're wondering, "What's he doing over here? What's he done in the area?"
So we've talked niche, okay, that you're a specialist in your field. You've decided this is what I'm doing, okay. Trust in business is critical. It's all very well, talking the talk, but they have to show the evidence of it as well. You had a big portfolio to bring with you because you'd completed, how many houses in Northern Ireland did you reckon you had done by the time you started to?
Well, we would have done around about 200, I suppose, where we would design them, produce all the technical information and project manage them on site, which was great from a London point of view. But then when I went to London, I looked at areas in central London, etc., and quickly found out that it wasn't for us, because central London was refurbishment, refurbishment of big buildings, very little new build, and the London architects would have done loads of those, and we'd have done very few. So our market was a little bit further out, where people are knocking down houses and building them up again. In other words, the one-off house market. So we were. The good thing is that we'd come along, and everybody would be talking to a number of architects, and most architects have done 2 or 3 new build houses, because in London there's a lot more refurbishment and a lot more good houses to refurbish, a lot more listed properties, etc. So there's less of a history of people building their own house. In Northern Ireland and Ireland, everybody has to go at it at some stage to build their own house, but in England not so much, and the market is determined really by developers. But I could come along and say we've done 200 of them, whereas most of the other people are looking at it done 5 or 6, which is very good. But that didn't matter. People didn't trust you. They didn't believe it done 200. There was something not right to them in the story, because we hadn't done anything in London, at that stage. So getting started was difficult.
But successful.
We had to really work at it, and we had to take on projects that we wouldn't particularly have wanted to. It was some houses. They were big houses, but they were tricky customers. But we had to do projects to establish projects in London, because that was the problem.
So then you had that footprint. You could say this is what we've done.
Then we can say we've done this in Ewing. We've done this one in Richmond. And then people relax a little bit. Oh, right, so you've done work here, and they can go and see them or whatever. So the getting started was the most difficult part. Now that we're started, it's not so difficult.
I could say I always really admire you, Des, because you started off going, "This is what I want to do," and you've stayed true to that core, the values all the way through. Going, I could have taken the easy money when things changed, but no, this is who I am. This is what I do. So it's obviously you've got a great love for design, as well as running the business.
Yeah, I do enjoy doing it, which is great. I don't enjoy it all the time, but
good days outweigh the bad days mostly.
Certainly, and we've further to go, because we know that we have been now 50% of our work is in London, and the reason for that is the fees are much better, and people are happy to pay fees. They are more concerned that you're the person who can do the job. They want somebody they can trust, and somebody who's got a background in it. So now we're in a position where we're building, I think, 8 or 9, big one-off houses in London, so we can take people to houses and show them. And the houses that we do, I think, are better than certainly a lot of the houses around them. The reason for that is London is controlled a lot by developers, and people are more cautious about building their own house. So when we come into an area, we have a good chance of getting something else because we've got a product that's a little bit different to the rest of the products that are there. But we are still not at we've had an opportunity, and we've been in the short list for some very big houses. When I say very big, it's 40 million, 20 million, wow. 40 million, those sort of houses, which is something we're very capable of doing, but we haven't got there because we're not from London, or we don't have an office in London. There's a few little things that we still got to work through, but we know that we will get up to that level eventually, because we can, and we're as good as the competition, and certainly our team, which is not just my team of architects, our team of other consultants, which mostly are from Northern Ireland, are very good as well, and as good, if not better, than what's available in London. So we're still working to get there, but haven't got there just yet.
So you've leveraged that niche that you've got. You've taken the skill set that presumably in Northern Ireland was a £500,000 house, or a £1 million house, or a £2 million house, and now you're able to take that niche that you've got to the 20 million and the 40 million pound house.
Yeah, and the difficulty is not our ability to do that product. We've done houses here that would be 20 million pound houses in London, where they're there, so we can do it. The problem is trust, really, that we're up against. We're now up against, for these big ones, there are 3 or 4 big London practices who are into the cartel, really. That's what they do, and for us to get into it, we need almost a personal relationship with a client. We need somebody who we can meet and who trusts us and likes the whole ethos of what we're talking about. But at least we're starting to get inquiries of that scale of project. So that's the first part. The second part is then to actually get one of these projects. And London at the minute is a little bit in the doldrums, but even London in the doldrums is busier than Northern Ireland in terms of building the big houses. So
population, go where the population is.
It's population, and it's still busy. Still a lot of work there. And the wealth is there.
So you've had an exciting journey. That's not over yet. So continue to grow in London, and just continue your design work. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, and I suppose what we want to do, I also like the idea of doing some little developments, and part of the reason for that is to be totally in control of what we do. And I do believe that the standard of housing developments in Northern Ireland is pretty predictable and not really serving a market that is there. And that then that market is for new build houses that are just of better quality and a little bit different. It seems to be quite repetitive what's there. So we'd like to develop that market and produce concept houses that will answer that need. And we've started, and it's been well received so far.
Very good. So you're an architect who's now a businessman. Do you enjoy balancing the two? Because obviously you've talked about both a team of third parties who you contract out to, and your own business employees. So how are you juggling that time, and do you enjoy that business part of it, or is it a little bit of a distraction from the bit that you've obviously emotionally involved in yourself?
Well, I like the business part of it. Because it's a little bit of a change, it's a totally different part of your brain, I suppose, being used to the design element within it. But whenever I worked for the large practice, the partners were architects, and they were frustrated by the fact that they had to do a lot of administration and a lot of business things and not get down to the design. So I did make a conscious decision not to be like that, in that we would get lots of inquiries for work and don't take it all on. We could be a much bigger practice if we wanted to be so, but that would mean that my lifestyle wouldn't be as good, because I'd be doing sitting in meetings, which I'm not a big fan of. I'd be doing accounts, I'd be all these sort of things where I like to do the design. So we can't get any bigger. We have got this size of business, which means that I can do a little bit of the necessary work that's required, which I don't mind if there's not too much of it, but can keep doing the design part, which the partners in the previous business couldn't. So we're always going to be this size, and we are, over the last number of years, we're just moving up the size of properties, the complexity, the detail of projects to get to, I suppose in Northern Ireland we're probably building the biggest houses here. In London we're not, but we're climbing the ladder, to get up there, and that will be the aim.
When we opened up this, I asked you why did you go out on your own, and you talked about control. So obviously part of that control is you have made that conscious decision to say, I'm going to control the size of my business because it's my business. Mm-hmm. You're in control of what you do with inside that business. And so would you say you've achieved what you wanted to, in terms of, I wanted to go out on my own, set up a business, be in control of my own destiny, the type of work that we do, and concentrating in a certain area?
Well, I think looking back on it, I didn't really want to have an architectural practice. I think I wanted to produce buildings, and I think we spoke about the creating concept houses. I think that is really what I like to do. That's difficult to do because you need money and you need the right set of opportunities to do that. The architectural practice, I enjoy the opportunities to design within that, but it's not. It wouldn't. I never started off wanting to have an architectural practice, but it's just it's sort of. I was very clear in what I wanted to do in terms of a business, but we're not. Every business, there has to be a path. You can't just go straight in and get exactly what you want, and this is the way in which we've got to do, where we've built up this team of knowledge and ability to produce these buildings. Now we are looking at what buildings do we produce, and I suppose there's two things: there's the very top end, which is probably will be in London, or concept houses, and it's those two parts. But the practice itself will be just be this small tight team of experts that are able to do these things.
Brilliant. Well, just before we wind up, I want to say thanks very much, Des.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, what one bit of advice would you give somebody who's considering setting up their own business now, apart from don't drive the digger and all the rest of it?
Well, driving the digger was useful because then I learned for sure that it's a very good lesson to organise things better and have the guy who needs to drive the digger coming there. So I think a lot of people give you well-meaning advice, and most of the advice is telling you not to do what you have in your head that you feel is right. So I think that whenever I went out, I went with my gut instinct. I went out to do the building, and if I'd sat down and thought about it and done a risk assessment and worked it all out as a plan, I wouldn't have done it because it was a little bit mad. But I needed to do it to get it out of my system, and also to learn the things that I needed to go on to the next stage. So I think you've got to trust your gut reaction, and when you're young at the start, you'll go down a few dead ends. So I think maybe it sounds wrong to not plan things too much, but you've got to go by your instinct.
You've got to learn by mistakes as well.
And learn by the mistakes, and going out and doing things. Going to Cheshire and finding out that it wasn't for us. It was important. Going to London and finding out all the difficult things that were there was the right thing to do. We could have given up because it was very difficult to start, but you got to go out and do these things that maybe don't make sense if you sat down on paper and looked at all the expenses you would have in going to London, and what chance do you have, who do you know over there. So I think you've got to follow your dream to a certain extent, and when you go through it, you'll have things that just don't go well, but you'll learn from that and you'll be stronger from it. So my advice, I suppose, is don't be too cautious. Do it and then learn from it.